It's great pleasure to be here. My name is Adetunji. We are here as one advocates across continents to support Global Human Rights Day. Before I move on, it's passionate to understand what one stands for. One is a global movement campaign to end extreme poverty and preventable diseases by 2030 so that everyone everywhere can lead a life of dignity and opportunity. We believe the fight against poverty is not about charity but justice and equity. With this understanding and collaborative effort of Julie from the United States, Matthew from Italy, and myself from Nigeria, we came together to lend our voices to global issues bordering on human rights by putting up strategies and plan on the best way to celebrate this year Global Human Rights Day. We sourced for seasoned guests, speakers, as well as getting people across continents to use their voices to support Global Human Rights Day. We believe the reality of COVID 19 has made it difficult to appear physically to lend our voices to these global issues, but nevertheless, we are committed not to give up in making sure this program is celebrated even with different time and weather condition of you and I. We do hope everyone, everywhere, we join and celebrate this year Global Human Rights Day by using their social media spaces so that everyone, everywhere can recover better. Thank you. Mattia, over to you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mattia, and I am a youth ambassador for One Campaign in Italy. Today, we are here to celebrate Global Human Rights Day. Every year, on the 10th of December, the international community observes this important date. In fact, back in 1948, in this same day, the United Nations General Assembly adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which lists the inalienable rights that everyone is entitled to without distinction whatsoever. This is a milestone document, indeed the most translated in the world, available in more than 500 different languages. Every year, celebrations have a different theme, and in this 2020, it obviously relates to the COVID 19 pandemic. Recover Better. This is the title chosen by the United Nations. It aims at reminding us that we will be able to build back better only when human rights are put at the very center of our recovery plans. Indeed, the COVID 19 crisis has surely deepened social and gender gaps and has wiped out many achievements of the past decades. In order to bridge these gaps, we need a more sustainable and resilient post COVID world. And every single person can play an important role in this. Eleanor Roosevelt stressed this point during the 10th anniversary of the Declaration. She said, and now I'm going to quote her: where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places, close to home, so close and so small that it cannot be seen on any maps of the world. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere. Without concerting citizen action to uphold them close to home, we shall look in vain for progress in the larger world. Therefore, as global activists, Ada Tunji, Julie, and I decided to do our part by raising awareness on these issues. And we did it despite time differences, which actually did not help us at all. And I think you agree with me, guys. During our meetings, we wonder about the best way to reach out to the wider public. In the end, we picked up the idea of a podcast, which is actually easily accessible to everyone. Now, in the remaining part of the discussion, you are going to listen to one speaker that Julie is about to introduce to you. She's a leading figure committed to human rights protection, and we really thank her for participating in this podcast. We really appreciate it. She will be answering Julie's questions. And now I think I've spoken too much, and the time has come to get to the heart of our discussion. Julie, you're up.
Thank you, Mattia. I am privileged today to introduce our speaker, Betty Abah. She is an Algerian journalist, author, and a woman and children rights advocate. She's a founder and she's an executive director of See Hope, which is a girl child rights and development nonprofit organization based in Lagos State. In 2019, she was a visiting fellow in human rights under the Human Rights Defenders Fellowship at the University of York in England. We are delighted to have you, Betty. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. My pleasure.
So, Betty, we're just going to jump right into this. As Mattia described, the UN is behind Global Human Rights Day. Can you tell us, just most basically, what are human rights?
From my perspective and experience, I believe that human rights is the ability and the status of one being dignified in living, where you have free access to food, to water, to shelter, and safety and security. And you are so dignified that you're not threatened, and your presence is not seen as a threat to anybody. So basically, human rights is about being dignified as a human being anywhere under the planet,
And
no matter your status, no matter where your economic circumstances. Just being human, being sane, being safe, being secured, being dignified.
And Betty, when we talk about human rights, we're talking about things that hopefully all of our nation's public policy drives forward. So that would mean public health initiatives, obviously, that would be related to the pandemic. Global climate change is another thing that impacts human rights. The idea that people have clean water available to them, and anything around like food insecurity, right? Which has been really exacerbated by the pandemic. Am I correct there?
Yes, and I would like to focus on food insecurity. Right here in Nigeria, I think never in the history of this country has food insecurity been this manifest as it is right now. For instance, around May and June, when this country was under a lockdown, there was widespread starvation, and so many persons were reported to have died. We actually lost more people in Nigeria from hunger, starvation, deprivation than the COVID-19 pandemic itself. And just recently, we had cases where in several states of the country, persons went to warehouses where we had stockpiles of palliative of food meant for distribution to the populace, but they were not distributed. And people broke into those warehouses and carted away food items. That was like a new law in Nigeria. Never before had people been so debased as human beings. Never before had people lost their humanity, their human dignity, as we have witnessed in the last couple of months, where people had to go with their families to steal food items. So there's major food insecurity. In the northern parts of the country, where we had the bulk of food production, the bulk of farming that affects the rest of the country, we've had insecurity in the last 10 years from the Boko Haram insurgency. And so many farmers had been restricted from their farms. Many persons had been displaced from their farmland, from their homes. Just recently, we lost over 100 farmers to a Boko Haram attack on the rice farm. That alone was very symbolic as to the threat that Nigeria faces in terms of food insecurity. And when people lose easy access to food, when people are hungry and they're ready to do anything in order to be able to access food, such as going with their families to steal in the daylight, you can see that we've reached the limit, and that is a big manifestation of food insecurity. And because we do not particularly have a government that is very empathic, we do not have a government that is very much in touch with the realities on ground, we do not have so much food stockpiles by the government. And then people are displaced and the economy is in a terrible state. Right now, Nigeria occupies the unenviable position as being the poverty capital of the world. And so there's a lot of economic instabilities, and this impacts heavily on food security. And because of that, uh, human rights basically is the human rights, the right to humanity, the human right of so many people, millions and millions of people, is being threatened. In IDP camps, for instance, we've had instances, several reports across the north especially, where people were sexually abused, or where we had this trend of food for sex, where people give in to sexual exploitation by the military, security personnel, and by government officials, in order to be able to access food for themselves, in order to be able to access food to be able to feed their families right in the IDP camps. We've had a lot of reports of sexual exploitation, of rape, and of a teenage pregnancy as a result of this vulnerability. So food insecurity in Nigeria has rendered millions and millions of people vulnerable, and we have cases upon cases where people's humanity, people's human dignity are facing a lot of indignity. And so food insecurity is a major issue, and this has been exacerbated by the reality of COVID-19. So it's a major issue, and it's quite a sad one
Yeah,
at that.
because you're really describing a cascading effect. Uh, Things were already difficult, but COVID has kind of,
Wasn't it? Yes.
yeah. And so what's interesting about what you're saying is that I noted that this year, the World Food Program received the Nobel Peace Prize. And so you've really described here kind of how food and violence are connected, but then really the idea of peace associated with food security, right? And so, what do you think are some effective strategies that we need to address to try to create food security? And maybe there's some things that the World Food Program has done that you're aware of.
Yes, I would like to commend especially the World Food Program and also the committees of the Nobel Prize for recognizing their very invaluable contribution to humanity, because food is life. And the absence of food, the competition for food, has caused a lot of conflict across the world. In the northern parts of the country, for instance, the second highest threat to security we have is that of herdsmen. So, and basically, the fundamental cause of the herdsmen crisis in the north has been the pressure for food, the competition for spaces for farming. And so people, the herdsmen migrate to farmlands, and then there are clashes. So, and because the people need to retain their farmlands, because that is their basic sources of livelihood. And so food is very essential. And when food is abundant, when people have free access to food, to sources of food, to farmlands, the pressure, the conflict is usually reduced. And so I actually, I think we have to recognize much more the efforts, the impact, and the contribution of the World Food Program. And it's very, very essential, and it's quite commendable that the Nobel Prize, the Nobel Peace Prize, the Nobel Prize Committee has actually identified and recognized that very priceless contribution. And I think that we need even to do more to promote the work that the World Food Program does, to ensure that they continue to do that, to reduce tension in the world, because there's so much conflict. And with COVID-19 and associated economic instabilities, we will expect that there will be more conflict, because people will continue to strive to be able to access food, to be able to access farmlands. And these are scarce commodities, because with world population and with the economic instabilities, the pressure will become much more on farmland, on resources, the pressure on resources. And so I think we have to commend and then to promote the work that the World Food Program does. And I think it's a basic area that we really have to face. I always say that in development work, It's very much important to talk about rights and other things that are not uh, visible. But it's also very important to promote the work of people that are involved in services, because this is very critical. Now, my organization works in informal communities across Lagos and other parts of the country. And then we work with people who are like at the very verge of survival. They are at the very brink. We work with some of the most vulnerable, some of the poorest communities. So most times when we go there, the first thing they need is actually survival. It's actually food. Well, you talk about education, you talk about human rights, you talk about development. They will try to bring in to incorporate other areas to ensure that these people are first of all even alive, because there's so much poverty in Nigeria. The economic instabilities, uncertainties, the vulnerabilities at a level that we've not seen before. And so when you go with these programs, sometimes you just have to step down a little and try to attend to the very physical, the very pressing, the very urgent needs of the people. And the World Food Program is doing just that. People basically have to be alive before you can tackle any other issue. And so I think that we have to pay more attention and support and ensure that the World Food Program gets more support.
Yeah. And hopefully through things like this and your work, we can continue to do that. And I know that because the global response to the pandemic has diverted everyone, that these kind of things can fall by the wayside because everyone is concerned, with survival and the pandemic. But what you're saying is don't focus a narrow lens. We need to look at the world overall, and food is the number one, the number one for well-being. And also then you described economically as well, right? In terms of the farmlands and folks being able to move the food and sell the food and get it to the people who need it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we should take a little bit to talk about the pandemic, kind of from your point of view and your human rights work. What do you have some personal stories to talk about? How it's changed, what you've had to do in your work, and what you think maybe if there are some effective strategies you've observed out there, some small victories where people have been helped. Have you seen anything like that?
Yes, thank you very much. In responding to the challenges brought on communities by COVID-19, we discovered that some of the persons that bear the greatest brunt of this pressure are women in these communities. Many of the women are breadwinners, many of them are single mothers, many of them are widows. And so we decided on our own to start an empowerment program for women in these communities, because basically Sea Hope works with vulnerable children, but we don't live 24/7 with those children. And so we found out that to have sustainable change, to have sustainable development, we have to empower the families. And the main person that you can sustainably engage and empower are the mothers. So we started this program amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, sometimes in July, called Empowered Mothers for Development Action. And so we gave grants, we gave trainings on economic business management, on hygiene management, and on child protection and various other things, because the pandemic comes with a lot of challenges, a lot of new unanticipated challenges. And so we started this program targeting women in these communities. Then after that, we started savings group, and it's been extremely successful. It's one of the best things we've done as an organization. So that has been our strategy, empowering women in these communities to be able to tackle the challenges, the socio-economic challenges brought on by COVID-19. And then we also discovered that there is a major unspoken problem, and that is menstrual hygiene management.
Mm.
In Nigeria, period poverty is a major plague that nobody talks about. because of it's considered as a taboo topic. Now, unlike countries like Uganda, Kenya, Rwanda, or even Scotland, that has in particular made sanitary products free for all women within the reproductive age bracket, Nigeria has done absolutely nothing. Nigeria has more female population. Nigeria has the highest number of out of school children, most of whom are girls. Nigeria is the poverty capital of the world. Yet Nigeria has no tax reduction for sanitary products. Yet Nigeria has no system that distribute it has no system of free distribution of sanitary products to schoolgirls, as is done in Uganda and Kenya, which are considered less rich countries. And so we started this program to draw attention to this particularly like a major problem among women and girls of reproductive age brackets in our communities, from low-income communities. And then we produced a documentary titled "Give Us This Day Our Monthly Pads," to start with, for the government to initiate a program of free distribution of sanitary products to schoolgirls. Now, if girls are made more vulnerable, if girls are made more susceptible to rape, to teenage pregnancy, to child marriage as a result of lack of access to menstrual hygiene resources. Now, COVID-19 just made things worse. Many of these parents are out of jobs. During the lockdown, many people who depend on daily income to be able to survive weren't working for months. So food was their basic need. So nobody even talks about menstrual hygiene management, menstrual products. And so it was a major issue. So besides getting products and distributing to several communities across Nigeria, we wanted a more sustainable program, a more sustainable policy where government will make these products cheaper, more accessible to women and girls, and in particular, initiate a program to ensure free distribution to schoolgirls so they can stay in school, they don't fall by the wayside to teenage pregnancy, to rape, in order to be able to access these things. Because as a woman, as a girl, I mean, period does not discriminate whether you have money or not, whether you're an IDP or not. It has to come once you are within that age bracket. And it's something that civil society hasn't taken up as much as they should. It's something that is not spoken of because it's a taboo topic. Nobody wants to talk about period. People feel very squeamish about it around here in Nigeria and most of Africa. And so that was a major campaign that we brought up to be as one of our responses to the COVID-19 challenges.
You know, it makes me think at the Academy Awards, I think it was last year, there was a documentary that I believe won based on women's menstrual experiences. And it was very funny because we are similarly squeamish about it in the United States. So it's important. You know, I was curious, Betty, as I'm working with my one buddies who are men, and I've raised two sons into adulthood and have a wonderful husband I've been married to for 34 years. Are there men in Nigeria who are involved in the Empower Women movement? Are you seeing a little bit of a cultural shift across gender lines?
Yes. We're beginning to see that now, but not as much as we would have loved to. But we're beginning to see that now. There's someone called the Padman who is actually involved in promoting menstrual hygiene management issues, who is promoting free distribution of pads to schoolgirls and to women in general. And we have male feminists in the civil society space. So we're beginning to see more of that. And then as we speak more and more about this in the media, what we call sanitary without shame. We're seeing more and more persons within the media space embracing this, because these are people that have sisters, people that have wives, that have female relatives and girlfriends who face these realities every day. Because sanitary products the prices have really skyrocketed, and every single person is feeling the impact in terms of job losses. So persons who had no issue to no reason to bother about buying sanitary products are now beginning to bother, because many people's purchasing power is just declining, is dwindling. And so this is a major issue, and people are happy to see some of us um, brush the shame to come out publicly to talk about it, and they say, oh, what you are doing is really a worthy cause, and this is our reality, and we would like to identify, because we also have wives, we have girlfriends, we have sisters who face these challenges all the time. So we're having more, again, beginning to see more and more of support now.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So in closing, we kind of wanted to look at the future. So last year's Global Human Rights Day theme was involving youth standing up for human rights. And so I have two questions. One is, are you seeing more young people getting involved? That's my first question.
Yes, just recently we had the End SARS movement, which was huge, which was compelling, which was unprecedented. Young people standing up all over the country to stand up against police brutality in Nigeria. It was simply unprecedented, because young people had had enough of police brutality. Young people have been victims of police brutality, of extrajudicial murders by the police, which is supposed to protect them. And so we had this movement in almost the 36 states of the country, and Abuja. We had a protest, very peaceful protest, that the government, of course, clamped down on them. And in Lagos here, as you know, several protesters were killed, several more injured, and that somehow brought an end to the physical protest. But even as we speak, the protest continues online. On Twitter, it's an ongoing thing. And so young people, much more than ever before, are being mobilized, are, are much more sensitized than ever before, because they know their rights. They know they have a right to good governance, which we are not getting, which we've not gotten for several years. And they are exposed to the internet. They know what of things in other parts of the world, which are under democracy. Because if you say we are under a democratic rule, then we should be beneficiaries of the fallout of democracy, which we are not seeing in Nigeria. There's no freedom of speech. Right now, there's not even freedom of association, and we cannot openly criticize the government. Yet, if not, they come for you. But then we are really impressed by the resilience, by the power and the articulation of young people, as that we're seeing, that we saw in the NSAS movement, and that we continue to see. Even many of them that were arrested with a lot of pressure, many have been released. And so young people are much more involved now than ever before, because especially because of the power of the internet. People are very conscious of what's going on across the world, and then people know their rights. And by the way, Nigeria has almost 70% of Nigerian population are young people. And so they know that the future responsibilities fall right on their shoulders. And they have to begin to get at power. They will have to begin to claim the powers that belong to them right from this time, because they are the ones that will take up the challenges of governance in the future. Because the older generation have failed woefully, the older generation do not want to relinquish power. And so we are pushing to be able to grapple power, not by coup, not in a bloody manner, but by doing the right thing, by truth rights campaigning, agitation,
Yeah.
and all that is legal. But so young people have been, this is I would say that in Nigeria, this is the year of the young people.
That's wonderful. And it's so interesting as you speak to hear lines of commonality, that we've had similar problems in the United States with police brutality. We've had peaceful protests and we've had violent protests. We've had issues with government. We've had a number of things. So I think sometimes we think we're unique, but in the end, I think on all of these topics that dovetail into human rights, we are all much more similar than we are different. And so my final question to you is, if you could make a wish or wave a magic wand, is there one thing that you would say, if we could just do this year and this time, it would make things better from a global human rights standpoint?
What I would say is, I want to say, and that I believe is possible, is that let's all unite for peace. Let the entire world unite for peace. Are, at the moment, we have countries have their individual choices, individual agitations. Countries are ready to make other countries go into extinction. People are very greedy. People have hidden agenda, and they're ready to kill. They are ready to maim. They are ready to blackmail in order to achieve their agenda. But let's have universal peace, because there cannot be progress outside of peace. There cannot be unity. There cannot be any meaningful progress. That's what we've witnessed in Nigeria, for instance. The North has been under siege in the last 10 years. Since 2010, Boko Haram has held the rest of the North, most parts of the North, under siege. And from one government to the other, they've not been able to really bring the situations under control. Rather, they resort to PR gimmicks, they resort to all kinds of media manipulations. But the fact is that the North is not at peace. And so, millions of children, for instance, are out of school in the North. Millions, over almost 30,000 people have been killed because of these conflicts. And there's so much instability, so much instability. And so when there's conflict, without peace, when there's no peace, there cannot be progress. So I believe that global peace is possible. I'm actually writing a collection of poems for children titled Peace is Possible, because we owe it to the younger generation to bequeath them peace, a peaceful world. That's when we will have real progress. From the USA, from North America, the Middle East, Africa, every part of the world, Asia, if we can all unite for peace, there will be progress, there will be global progress. So if we have as our agenda a global peace reality, I think that the world will be a better place to live in, a more livable, a more peaceful, a more joyful, and a more progressive world.
What a beautiful message to end on, Betty Abah. Thank you so much. And please, when your collection of poems for children comes out, please
Yes.
let us know, because we would love to read them and promote them globally. But we really appreciate your insight and your time. We're so privileged to have you. And we ask everyone listening, please support global human rights. Join the One Campaign, a wonderful organization to amplify that. Follow us on social media. We'll be having more podcasts and information on global human rights and Global Human Rights Day, including speakers from Transparency International and Oxfam. So let's all recover better beginning today. Thank you so much.